Hi everyone. Most people build their career backwards. They collect qualifications, become very good at work nobody really rewards, and wait for someone to notice. That was me. I worked hard, tried to do everything right, and stayed underpaid for years. If I had to restart my career in 2026, I would focus on 5 skills in this order. The final skill can multiply the other 4, but without them, it mostly helps you produce the wrong work faster. Number 5 is technical fluency. I don't mean that everybody should become a software engineer. I mean learning to see your company as a system. If you work in banking, what actually happens after a customer sends a payment? If you work in insurance, what happens between someone reporting a claim and receiving a decision? Where does the information go? Which system owns it? And what happens when the one part fails? You don't need to know how to build every component, but you should understand how the important pieces are connected. That became extremely valuable in my career. I learned enough about processes, application, data models, APIs, and microservices to take part in technical conversation without pretending to be a developer. More importantly, I learned to ask better questions. Imagine a company connecting several new services to an old core system. At a surface level, questions would be, does the integration work? But I ask further, which system is the source of truth? What happens when one service is unavailable? Or how we will know that something has failed? And who is responsible for fixing it? Those questions matter because they connect the technology to the business results. Here is the exercise. Choose one process you encounter at work and draw it on a single page. Mark who starts it, who touches it, which system it passed through, where the data changes, and what result it is supposed to produce. Then show the map to someone who understands that process better than you and ask, what have I misunderstood or left out? That conversation will often teach you more than another generic course. Technical fluency helps you see the whole problem. But on a complex project, 4 departments can look at the same problem and walk away with 4 different interpretations. That is why skill number 4 matters. Number 4 is translation. On many expensive projects, the biggest problem isn't the technology. It is that everybody leaves the meeting believing they agreed. A CEO, product manager, developer, or compliance specialist can discuss the same feature while quietly answering 4 different questions. The CEO is thinking about business impact, cost, or risk. The product manager is thinking about the customer value. The developer needs logic, exceptions, data, and technical constraints. And legal and compliance need evidence that the solution follows the rule. The mistake is giving all 4 people the same explanation. One of the most valuable abilities in my career has been translating between those professionals' worlds. Not changing the facts, but changing the level of detail and the language so each person can make a decision. I once worked on a complicated feature that had to satisfy all of those groups. Management needs a clear decision. Developers need specific, precise specifications, and product need trade-off. The feature launched successfully because each group could act on the same underlying truth. That is one principle, one through different resolutions. To practice it, take one complicated issue from your work and explain it in 3 ways. To an executive, to a colleague, and to specialist. The fact should stay consistent. Only language and level of detail should change. This is also a useful test of your own thinking. If you can only explain something with jargon, there is a good chance you don't fully understand it yet. Translation gets people aligned, but early in your career, nobody may invite you into the room where the skill is useful. For too long, I waited for someone else to decide that I was ready. That brings us to number 3. Number 3 is proactive learning. One quiet assumption cost me years. I believed that if I worked hard enough, somebody would eventually design the right career path for me. Usually nobody does that. In my first serious corporate role, I was fortunate to have an excellent manager. He showed me how companies actually make decisions, where projects go wrong, and which mistakes to avoid. After that, most of my useful learning came from real projects, bad decisions, incomplete information, and situations where I felt slightly out of my depth. If I were starting again, I would still seek real responsibility, but I would also find a mentor much earlier. Not a famous CEO, but just somebody 2 or 3 steps ahead of me. I would also spend less time collecting certificates that had nowhere to go. Certificates can be useful, but the framework cannot reproduce the difficult works of real work, the difficult parts of real work, sorry, like missing information, like combating incentives, small budgets, or changing priorities. The learning loop I use now is simple. Find a real problem, learn what you need, build a small version like MVP, get some feedback and improve it. Skill number 2 can make them remember you years later, including when you are not in the room. Number 2 is building trusted professional relationships. Some of the best opportunities of my career began in the rooms where I wasn't present. Former managers, colleagues, or board members recommended me for roles with more responsibility and better pay. They didn't do that because I suddenly started networking when I need a job. They did it because we already worked together. They knew whether I kept my promises or told the truth when something went wrong. That is how I think about the professional network. It isn't like a collection of contacts. It is like accumulated trust over the time. Your reputation keeps moving long after you leave a company. Colleagues join new teams, managers move up to senior roles, and few years later, your name comes up with in a conversation you know nothing about. Number 1 is using AI effectively. And most people are learning it backwards. They begin with the tool. I would begin with the workflow. Using AI to rewrite an email is convenient. Trying every model can be interesting, but neither one by itself creates like much career leverage. I think the valuable skill is recognizing a real use case, defining what a good result looks like, and building a process you can trust. Today, I used AI to analyze data, create interactive dashboards, build small applications, prototype product and user experience ideas, and produce marketing and video materials. It has made me something like a Swiss Army knife across different parts of a business. That does not mean I'm better than every specialist, but a professional developer will build stronger production software, a professional designer will create better final design. My advantage is different. I can move from an idea to useful first version much faster. I can test whether an idea has a value before asking an entire team to invest in it. That is a leverage. And now the list becomes important. Technical fluency helps you inspect what the AI produces. Translation helps you define what people actually need. Proactivity helps you find worthwhile applications. And trusted relationships expose you to better problems and give you better feedback. AI multiplies that complete skill set. Without those foundations, it can make you faster without making you useful. You can produce more documents, more code, more slides, and more noise, while solving the wrong problems. Here is how I would start. Choose one task you repeat every week that takes at least 30 minutes. Before you open the AI tool, write down the 4 things. What information goes in, what exactly should come out, which rules must be followed, and how I will check whether the results are correct. Then run the workflow 3 separate times. Measure the time you save, but also record every mistake you have to correct. If the process saves time without reducing quality, improve it and reuse it. If the output is not consistent, you have found the point whether the workflow needs better instruction, better data, or human judgment. The goal is not to put AI everywhere. The goal is to find the places where it creates measurable value, and the responsibility remains yours. Protect confidential information, follow your company's policy, check the work. Delegating tasks to AI does not delegate the accountability. AI is number one because it can multiply everything below it. But it is the multiplier, not the foundation. If I had to restart my career in 2026, this is the stack I would build. Learn how the system works. Explain it to different people can act. Take ownership of the first useful step. Build trust before you need it. And then use AI to multiply the whole system. None of these skills developed while I was completely comfortable. Every important step required me to enter a situation where I was uncertain, inexperienced, or afraid of getting something wrong. But you do not need to improve all 5 at once. Score yourself from 1 to 5 on each skill, then choose one that is currently limiting the rest, and run a 7-day experiment. Map one process, explain one problem 3 ways, fix one repeated frustration, and reconnect with 3 people you trust, and measure the real AI workflow. Make it small enough to finish, but real enough to teach you something. In the next video, I'll show you exactly how I use AI agents for professional work, from defining the task to checking the final result. If that would be useful, subscribe so you don't miss it. And in the comments tell me, which of these 5 skills is your bottleneck right now?